interview.
Absolutely.
Sean, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Francis. How are you?
I am perfect. I was telling them a little bit about your bio. You know, you are like a family man, a dad, an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker. You have written 15, not 5, not 10, 15 plus books, right?
Absolutely, I sure have.
And you are a great American because you served
Yes, ma'am.
in the United States.
I sure did.
So in the Marines or
In the Air Force.
in the Air Force. So
Uh-huh.
thank you for being a great American.
Thank you.
You know what? I don't want to stumble over your bio. Tell our audience what you'd like them to know about you and why you and I are connected.
Well, my biggest passion is helping people to help them create generational wealth through multiple streams of income. Just a little bit about myself. I'm from Atlanta originally, and I come from a family of entrepreneurs. And actually, my great uncle and aunt owned the first African American owned hotel here in the Atlanta area in the historic Auburn Avenue district. So that's where the entrepreneurial bug started in my family. Both of my parents both owned companies as well growing up. So it put me in a good environment to win and to understand economics through business ownership. And that's what caused me to start my multiple businesses. And I carried it over to the next generation with my kids who own their own businesses.
You know what, Sean? I was reading your bio, and that's what stuck like glue to me. That I was like, Sean and I, we must connect because that is the heartbeat of Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast.
Absolutely.
B Podcast, our objective is to eradicate the wealth gap in our country with Black people in urban areas. What is amazing, and I've told this statistic 1,000 times, but I must repeat it.
Okay.
If an African American start a business, if they make $50,000, our counterpart, a Caucasian woman, will make $161,000, and a Caucasian male will make $262,000 a year. And it's not that income gap, that wealth gap, even when we go to a job, and which we are not saying don't take a job, but our objective here is about promoting entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about raising those young moguls.
Yes, man, we're so excited. You know, oftentimes people feel that kids are too young to start a business. And it's just like, you know, you get 5 and 6 year olds out here who can name every song, every word to every song. Also, and they know every dance to every song. So if we could teach them silly stuff like that that's not going to add economic value to them, we should be able to teach them financial literacy. You know, just like they learn through the educational system, words, your mathematics, etc. Well, my son, he's the younger of the two. He has a business called Daddy Did You Know? And with that, he has financial flashcards, which actually teaches financial literacy to children his age and younger, as well as adults. He has 4 different series of the cards to include like real estate, banking terms, the do's and the don'ts before buying real estate. So what this does, it prepares our children to be economically viable, to have the education. You know, I often tell people, you know, if I say parlez-vous français or do you speak Spanish or anything like that, a lot of times if you don't understand that language, if you are immersed in that land where that language is spoken, if you don't speak the language, you're going to have a hard time coping. So the same applies with financial literacy. If we're put in the land of finances and we don't speak that language, we're going to have a really hard time of being able to cope. So, you know, I think it's paramount that we teach this next generation so that you can have generational wealth. Because in the past, you know, we all learned, go to school, get good grades, go get a good job. Well, if you get a good job, you still can't leave that job to your children. So it's like we go up a certain level, we stop, and then our next generation have to start back over. So it's a stop, start cycle without accumulating any wealth.
And that's the key. And one of the things in your bio, you talk a great deal about generational wealth,
Mm-hmm.
but you also talk about real estate.
Yes.
And you also talk about multiple streams of income.
Absolutely.
So take either one of those topics, Sean, whether
Mm-hmm.
you want to talk about generational wealth, which you did, real estate, or multiple streams of income. That is so important to leaving a legacy.
Right. Well, I'll touch on both of them actually. You know, when it comes to creating wealth, again, we've always been misguided to think that it has to do something with having a good job or having a good education. Well, the education is important, but it's what type of education we get. You know, we have what's called a scholastic education or academic education. That's where we learn reading, writing, and arithmetics. Then we have what's called a professional education. That's where we learn particular career fields such as being an engineer, a doctor, or attorney. Usually comes with some type of a certification. That puts us in a situation where we make more money, but we're also utilizing more time to create that money. The third type is the financial literacy education or the business education. That's where we learn how to make our money work for us as opposed to exchanging time for money. Because, you know, most people, we have a job that requires our physical ability to perform. And the question you have to ask yourself is, well, if something happened to my physical ability to perform, how can I still make money? You know, I call that the X out factor. If you're the head of the household and you're X'd out of the equation, what just happened to your family financially? So just like in our car, we have a spare tire in our trunk or in the undercarriage. What we have to ask ourselves, do we have a spare income in case of a financial blowout or an economic disaster? So with real estate, you know, my son, he just turned 8. And he will tell you that his goal before he turns 18 years old is to own a multifamily unit. And he understands the value of that, where he would purchase one building, let's say if it's a quadplex. He would live in one, and he have 3 other units that he could rent out. So let's suppose he's charging them $700 rent, for an example, with 3 other tenants, that's $2,100. So tenant number 2 or tenant number 1 typically can fund the cost of the entire real estate property, or what I like to refer to as the asset producing income. And then tenant number 2 and 3 could go into a subsequent investment. It's kind of like the game of Monopoly. You know, we get 4 greenhouses, trade them in for 1 red hotel. So this is a way where children, particularly children that look like us, to be able to create a strong economic sense where they can go into college if they decide to go to college, and it'd be completely funded without having to acquire student loans. Because these kids are getting out here and they're making, they're acquiring $80, $120, $200,000 of student loan just to get out and hope that they get a $30,000 or $35,000 a year job. And just playing the numbers, that just doesn't add up as far as being able to pay that off. So that's why real estate is so instrumental. It's I think it's the most effective tool for creating wealth. You know, you can do different investings in real estate as well, whether it's to buy and hold or to actually just acquire properties that you decide you may want to live in for a little while and flip.
And we've had several entrepreneurs on the podcast and on the Facebook Live that talked about that. And one was actually, he was a real estate entrepreneur, but he didn't own a real estate license. And he was talking exactly what you were saying, and he shared about his experience. And that's one of the things, so talk to our audience. That's one of the things that I think that we're lacking, that understanding of education in real estate. So if someone is listening and they're saying, you know what, I want my grandchild or my child or someone in my family or even myself to have a greater understanding about real estate, and for my children to learn at a very young age. You're saying you're teaching your son at 8 years old. He's already has a dream in his mind, and you planted the seed. And so we will look up, and he will be a landowner. He will own multiple properties. Another thing is, if you do your research and you look at all the millionaires and all the billionaires, every one of them, they got their start in real estate. That's how they built their wealth, is through real estate. So how do you get your kids started at a young age? What strategies or tools should the audience take?
God, Francis, you made an excellent point there. You know, a lot of times people, and that's how I started up 20 years ago. I actually had a real estate license. But what I found out is that, you know, when you have a real estate license, that's designed for, you know, residential, commercial sales, more on an individual basis. That would be equivalent to, that's kind of like linear growth, you know, at which time, you still there?
Get back on.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me there?
And you know what? And we did get it. I know it froze, but we do have a question from Testimonial. She said, "What is the best way to start in real estate? Investing, wholesaling?"
Gotcha. I think the easiest way to get started there would be to get into tax liens. And for the listeners, for those who don't understand how tax liens work, you know, a lot of people run from it, but you need to run towards it. And here's why. With the tax liens, let's say, for an example, Bob and Mary fell behind in their the taxes for their property. If it was, let's just say, $2,500 that they were behind in taxes, well, I can go in and I can acquire that tax lien for the face value of $2,500. They then have 366 days to pay me back that $2,500 plus 20% of that $2,500. Okay? Typically, if they're behind, it's a possibility that they may still be behind next year. So it's a good chance that I'll be able to acquire the property. But to ensure that I acquire the property, what I can do is I can elevate my offer and I can purchase that tax lien for, let's say, $3,500. Or if I just really love the property, I may see the property as something I want to live in myself, I could inflate it up to $10,000, $5,000, whatever it is, where I feel pretty reasonable that they won't pay that back. So at the 366th day, I can, if they don't pay back that money plus the 20%, and of course if I go at a higher rate of $3,000 or $5,000, they have to pay that plus 20% of that amount, not just the initial $2,500. So let's suppose that they don't pay it back, then I can go ahead and start the foreclosure process, and I would have that home. Let's say if it's valued at $200,000, I just purchased that property for the mere $3,000 or $5,000, whatever the amount was. With that, you know, you'll pay the foreclosure process, which is about $450 on average. So that's still a win-win situation. Worst case scenario, if they do pay back the money's owed, I still got 20. Well, in Georgia, I'm in Georgia. I still get 20% back return on my investment. And the best banks are doing right now is 0.01%. So that's still a great return on my investment. And then what I also recommend for people to do in that particular situation, if you can do that once a year, and I'm just being really conservative here, let's just say you do one in your first year. And let's say that you got your money back or either you acquired the property next year. Well, let's set a goal for that second year. And keep in mind, you don't have to wait the second year, but let's just say we're doing it very modestly. The second year, let's suppose that you are able to acquire tax lien every quarter. So now we have, or we go every three months, so that'll be 4 tax liens a year that we have. So next year, every quarter, we're going to either get money back with the 20% interest, or we're going to acquire property. Now at this point, now what I was telling you earlier about going linear growth, now we're going into exponential growth. Linear growth is equivalent to having, let's say we buy a rabbit every week. Next week we buy another rabbit. Well, at the end of the year, we'll have 52 rabbits. But let's go on the exponential factor and say we buy a male rabbit and a female rabbit every week. Well, next week we'll buy another male and a female, but those first 2 will have made it. And that's what creates the exponential growth factor. So going back to the tax liens, by year number 3, you should be in a position, if you did in year number 2 every quarter, year number 3, we should be at a point where you can now go to the courthouse every month and acquire at least 1 tax lien, if not more. But if you now do 1 tax lien, now in year number 4, you're in a position where every single month you're going to either receive money back or property. And it goes on and on and on. So in a 5-year projection, someone just working a job that say, hey, I like what I do for a profession, or I want to go ahead and start this as a full-time business, in an easy 3 to 5 years, you can be in a position where you're either acquiring property or receiving money back on a monthly basis.
That's brilliant. That is a brilliant strategy. So someone is thinking, this is a great strategy for me to start, but I'm not comprehending everything Sean is saying. Where should they get the resources or the tools or the education to learn about tax liens? Where should they start?
Got it. What I would do is recommend YouTube. That's the easiest way, just to get some good information. It's free. It'll at least get you going. A lot of times people say, well, Sean, I got to wait till I get all my ducks in a row before I execute and start going forward. Well, here's what I understand about successful people. We don't have to know everything. We just need to know enough. So the thing is, just get moving. A parked car just cannot move. You can't steer a parked car. So let's just get it moving down the street and acquire a little information here. Get some YouTube tutorials. There's tax lien seminars around the country all the time. They advertise on the radio. You can just Google it. But usually most of the major cities, they'll have at least a tax lien class every couple months or so in your particular area. That's a way to at least start getting acclimated to how the process works. And also, every county in the United States has a tax lien sale on the first Tuesday of every month. So get in touch with the tax assessor in that particular county, and they can tell you the times and the dates in which they do that. And that's just good exposure. Just get out there and watch how the process is taking place. A lot of the investors out there won't tell you information, but there's a lot of cool people out there who will kind of guide you and kind of explain to you what's going on as it's happening. And then that'll put you in the mindset of understanding how the process works and the protocol once you acquire a property, what to do.
Sean, someone is saying capital. We always want to know, Sean, how did you get the money to start your business?
Gotcha. Well, there's multiple things. The first thing, and I had somebody just this morning, Francis, asked me, they was like, Sean, I want to start a business, but I don't have money. And when we say capital, most people think of capital as being cash. But capital comes in multiple areas. We have human capital, which comes through our network. And what I always tell people is if you don't have money, here's a way to broker, since we're talking about real estate, here's a way to broker a deal. It's called syndication. Deal syndication. It's as simple as saying, hey, look, I have the drive, I have the eagerness, I don't have the money, perhaps my credit may not be good. Well, guess what? My best friend Derek has great credit. My friend Karen, she has money, she has capital. And then I have another friend over here, Dan, he's really good in real estate and being able to find properties. So what you can do is you can actually broker this whole deal and collaborate with everyone's expertise. And then you can put this deal together. So let's say you went to an investor, an angel investor, and you said, hey, look, Mr. Jones, I have this deal. If you invest $15,000 now, we're pretty confident that in the next 60 to 90 days, I can turn that $15,000 into $40,000, or let's just say double his money at $30,000. So by putting in $15,000, you work the deal. The person with the great credit, he wins. The person that's a real estate agent, they win. The person with the network, they win, and I win for brokering the deal. So being that you put this deal together, you syndicated this deal, you can be in a position where you just put together a few $100,000 deal or even $1 million deal whereby everyone was a win-win-win scenario. And what happened in this point was you were able to now get your seed money, the capital that you needed to start your business. So let's just say if you walked with $5,000, then again, you have to ask. You just put a little time and effort in, but you didn't physically have to put money into it. So when people say, well, Sean, it takes money to make money, that's not true. It takes capital to make money, and capital isn't always cash. So that's what I recommend to people in that regard. And then once you get going, just sow that seed into your business and get really good at reinvesting back into your business. A lot of times in our culture, we make that money, and first thing we want to do is we want to go spend it. Dr. Claude Anderson talks about having a financial bounce factor. And, in the African American community, the time of circulation in our community is only 6 hours from the time we get money in our hand before it leaves our community. And the Caucasian community, their bounce is about 6 to 8 days. The Arabs usually about 12 to 14, and the Jewish community is 18 to 21 days before that money leaves out of their community. So we have to learn group economics in this whole process as well, and that's how you structure a successful business, by taking your seed money and planting it and growing it.
And we have another question in the audience. I believe you were talking about, and if I'm wrong, Testimony, just add this in. You were talking about liens, and Testimonial wrote, she said that she's in DeKalb County. That's in Georgia.
Yes.
And so I guess she's wanting more information about that market, or if any inputs you have about that for liens in that county.
Yes, I actually live in DeKalb County, and again, so they meet on the first Tuesday of every month at the DeKalb County Courthouse on the steps. And here's another secret too, and I think this will set a lot of people free. In the beginning, a lot of times people may be so concerned about the competition. And now there is a lot of competition. There is a lot, but there isn't a lot. Most of the time you have a ton of people out there, but there's only about 6 to 8, maybe 12 people who are truly investors. Now, the bad thing about that is a lot of times they have a lot of cash capital where they're able to get all the good stuff as people think. But here's the deal. Most counties, to include DeKalb County, they have what's called an over-the-counter sale. So instead of me vying for this one particular property, once it goes on the courthouse step, it can't go back. It goes into a surplus. So now what I can do is I can just go in, and this comes with building relationships. I go in, I talk to one of the clerks, and I say, hey, look, what do you have over the counter available today? And I have thousands of houses just over the counter. So instead of me sitting here fighting, bidding up this property to an exorbitant amount of money, I can just go straight in and say, hey, look, that right there looks pretty interesting. Oh, it's only $500? So imagine $500 as opposed to trying to vie for $15,000 with someone to get a suitable house that's very similar in demographics. So it's a lot of tricks of the trade. Don't be afraid of business is the thing I tell everyone. Education, I can't overstress that. Education. But I'm not talking about scholastic education. I'm talking about business education, where you can now work smarter and not harder. So I hope that helped out for someone out there.
That was a value bomb. Listen, Sean, it is telling me that I have 10% on my phone.
Okay.
So I do not want to lose this information, and definitely would love to have you again. But
Yes.
Before we conclude, you must give your handles. People are saying this is some huge value bombs. I need to connect with this man. He is serious, right?
Yes.
So tell us how they can connect with you.
Yes, my website is Sean J. Harris. That's SEAN, the letter J, Harris.com. I can be found on Facebook as Sean J. Harris, and also Sean J. Harris Speaks. I'm on Instagram at Sean J. Harris, the number 1. And I can also be found on YouTube. I have a plethora of videos, educational tutorial videos on YouTube as Sean J. Harris Speaks. And Francis, for all of your guests, if they type in 555, text 555-888, and enter in the keyword Econ Power, ECONPOWER, and fill that information out on there, they will get a free ebook. My book titled Economic Power. And that's the basis, because in parting with you, what I want to stress to people, people say, well, Sean, how do I know I have economic power or not? If you don't sign the front and the back of your check, you don't have economic power. Only until that point does a person have true economic power, when you sign on the front and the back of your check. So that book will really help launch people in the mental aspect of understanding how money works and where your real power lies.
Now, Sean, is that offer for individuals that watch live and on the replay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And is it a certain time period? It's not going to be forever. Let's say.
I'll keep that up until Friday.
Okay, that's good.
Until Friday at midnight.
So what is that, the 6th?
5th, I think it's the
5th.
5th, yes.
Okay, guys, you heard it live. It's until October 5th. He's not going to extend it forever. So, like the early bird gets the worm.
Absolutely.
Really, right? So, Sean, we have to have you back on. You are amazing.
Absolutely.
You dropped some value bombs, getting nothing but loves and hearts. Again, Sean, tell them how they could contact you. Give them your handles again for those that are just jumping on.
Gotcha. SeanJHarris.com. And my Facebook is Sean J. Harris, and also Sean J. Harris Speaks. My YouTube channel is Sean J. Harris Speaks, and my Instagram is Sean J. Harris, the number 1.
All right, Sean. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Testimony, for staying on and just being so amazing. And I would take advantage of that free ebook. And, thanks again. And you know what I was telling them before you jumped on, that we ought to do, how they say, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. We
Yes.
ought to dream of a black Christmas, right?
Absolutely.
So it's not talking about a blackout, but I just came up with this idea. We should do a black Christmas. So let's say if everyone that celebrates Christmas, because not everyone celebrates Christmas, but if you celebrate Christmas, just think if every family that celebrates Christmas, if they did business with one black
Yes.
entrepreneur,
Yes.
what would that do for our economy? Whether you do and then post it. Post what you did, whether you're doing business with a gardener, somebody that's doing maintenance in your house, whether you purchase a book, buy a hair care product, get your hair done. Let's support black businesses this Christmas. Let's do a Buy Black Christmas, where at least one of your Christmas gifts is from a black entrepreneur, and post it in Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. Let us know what city and who's the person, tag the business, so we can have generational wealth and stimulate our economy in our communities, and let's do that.
Absolutely.
And like Testimonial said, artists too, absolutely want to give a shout out to Testimonial. Don't want to forget, she's an artist. You might want to buy your paintings, whatever it is. Support a black business, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
All right. Sean, love you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you, and we'll do it again.
Thank you.
Take
Sounds
care.
good. Thank you, Francis.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.